It's a landmark ruling that could change the way soccer is run.
Avec pour conséquence que ce joueur ne peut pas participer à des compétitions de football pour le compte de ce nouveau club.
They're earning a lot of money within that UEFA FIFA system pyramid at the moment.
The European Court of Justice ruled on Thursday.
In the world of football, a seismic shift is underway. Picture this: Kylian Mbappé, valued at over 180 million euros, walking away from PSG for free. Erling Haaland switching clubs as easily as changing shirts. Sounds impossible? Not anymore. The European Court of Justice has just dropped a bombshell that could shatter FIFA's iron grip on the transfer market. For decades, FIFA has controlled how players move between clubs, dictating the market and holding both players and clubs in a chokehold. But what if I told you that all of this could change in just a few months? Today we're diving deep into the shocking verdict from the European Court of Justice, better known as the EUGH, that could tear apart FIFA's transfer system forever. Let's cut to the chase. The European Court of Justice, the highest court in the EU, has just dropped a bombshell on FIFA's doorstep. They've ruled that key parts of FIFA's transfer system are illegal. Yeah, you heard that right. Illegal. But what exactly did they say? The court found that FIFA's rules on player transfers violate EU laws on competition and freedom of movement. It's like FIFA's been playing by its own rulebook and the EUGH just blew the whistle. The ruling specifically targets two key aspects of FIFA's transfer regulations. Number one, the rule that makes a new club jointly liable for paying compensation if a player terminates their contract without just cause. The court sees this as anti-competitive, essentially putting handcuffs on players and clubs alike. Number two, the power FIFA gives to national associations to withhold a player's international transfer certificate during contract disputes. This, according to the EUGH, unfairly restricts players' freedom of movement. Now you might be thinking, so what? It's just some legal jargon. But hold on to your seats, because this is where it gets interesting. This verdict came about because of one man's fight against the system. Remember Lassana Diarra, the former Arsenal and Chelsea midfielder, took on FIFA after a dispute with his Russian club Lokomotiv Moscow back in 2014. Diarra argued that FIFA's rules made it impossible for him to find a new club when he wanted to leave Russia. And guess what? The court agreed with him. The EUGH didn't pull any punches. They said FIFA's rules impose considerable legal risks, unforeseeable and potentially very high financial risks, as well as major sporting risks on players and clubs. In other words, FIFA's been running a rigged game and the court just flipped the table. The court didn't just say these rules are a bit unfair. They said they go beyond what is necessary to achieve any legitimate aims. It's like telling FIFA, you're not just bending the rules, you're breaking them. Now, FIFA's trying to play it cool. They are saying this only affects 2 paragraphs of 2 articles in their regulations. But don't be fooled, this is a big deal. It's like saying the offside rule only affects a small part of football. We all know it changes the entire game. Now let's get to the juicy part. How exactly could this EUGH verdict shake up the world of football transfers? First off, imagine a world where transfer fees become as outdated as fax machines. That's right, we could be looking at a future where players can move between clubs with much more freedom. No more astronomical transfer fees holding players hostage to their contracts. It's like the Bosman ruling on steroids. Remember when Neymar moved to PSG for a mind-boggling 222 million euros? Well, under this new ruling, such astronomical fees become a thing of the past. Players might be able to switch clubs almost as easily as you and I change jobs. It's a footballer's market, and clubs better be ready for it. But here's where it gets really interesting. This ruling could completely flip the power dynamic in football. For years, big clubs with deep pockets have dominated the transfer market. They could afford to pay hefty transfer fees and snap up the best talent. But now, the playing field could be leveled. Smaller clubs, who've always struggled to keep their stars from being poached by the big boys, might actually stand a chance. Without the barrier of transfer fees, they could compete for top talent based on other factors like playing time, club culture, or development opportunities. It's like David suddenly getting a slingshot in his battle against Goliath. And let's talk about player power. This verdict essentially hands players the keys to their own careers. No longer can clubs hold players to ransom with long contracts and exorbitant release clauses. players could have unprecedented freedom to shape their own career paths. It's like footballers are finally breaking free from their gilded cages. In any major shake-up, there are winners and losers. This EUGH verdict is no exception. Let's break down who might be popping champagne and who might be drowning their sorrows. First up, the big winners, the players. This ruling essentially hands them the keys to the kingdom. With more freedom to move between clubs, players could have unprecedented control over their careers. Star players, in particular, could find themselves in a position to negotiate even more favorable contracts. It's like they've just been given a golden ticket to the football candy store. But it's not just the superstars who could benefit. Fringe players or those stuck in unfavorable situations could find it easier to move and revitalize their careers. No longer would they be trapped by prohibitive transfer fees or restrictive contracts. It's a whole new ball game for player empowerment. On the club side, it's a mixed bag. Smaller clubs with strong youth academies could suddenly find themselves on more equal footing with the giants. Without hefty transfer fees as a barrier, they might be able to attract and retain talent based on factors like playing time and development opportunities. It's like David finally getting a fair shot against Goliath. Now for the potential losers, FIFA and UEFA are undoubtedly taking a hit here. This ruling challenges their authority and control over the football world. They're like the old guard watching their empire crumble, and they'll need to adapt quickly to stay relevant. The EUGH verdict isn't just changing the rules, it's handing players the controller to their own career game. This ruling could be a game changer for football players at all levels. That promising youngster stuck on the bench, he might now have the freedom to seek opportunities elsewhere without the barrier of a transfer fee. The veteran looking for one last hurrah, he could find it easier to secure that dream move. Think about it. Players could strategically plan their careers like never before. The power to shape their own destinies is now firmly in the players' hands. But with great power comes great responsibility. Players and their agents will need to be savvier than ever. It's not just about chasing the biggest paycheck anymore. They'll need to consider factors like playing time, tactical fit, and long-term career development. It's like they're becoming the CEOs of their own personal football brands. This shift could also lead to more player-led transfers. We might see more situations like the infamous Sequeira incident with Neymar and Piqué. Players could become more vocal about their desire to move, knowing they have more leverage than ever before. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room, FIFA. The global governing body of football has just been handed a red card by the EUGH, and their response could shape the future of the beautiful game. Initially, FIFA tried to play it cool. They claimed the ruling only puts in question 2 paragraphs and 2 articles in their regulations. But behind closed doors, you can bet there's panic in the FIFA headquarters. This ruling strikes at the very heart of how they've controlled the game for decades. So what options does FIFA have? Well, they could try to appeal the decision, but that's a long shot. The EUGH is the highest court in EU, and their word is pretty much law. FIFA is more likely to focus on damage control and adapting to the new reality. One possibility is that FIFA will try to create new regulations that comply with EU law while still maintaining some control over transfers. They might focus on things like training compensation and solidarity payments to ensure smaller clubs aren't left out in the cold. It's like trying to patch a sinking ship. They need to act fast and smart. But let's be real, FIFA isn't going to give up control without a fight. We might see them try to implement new rules or systems that give them oversight in a different way. As we reach the final whistle of our deep dive into the EUGH verdict and its potential impact on football, one thing is crystal clear. The beautiful game is on the brink of a revolution. We've seen how this ruling could dismantle FIFA's long-standing transfer system, potentially ending the era of astronomical transfer fees. The potential winners and losers in this new landscape are many. Players and their agents stand to gain significant leverage, while smaller clubs might find new opportunities to compete. On the flip side, FIFA and UEFA face a serious challenge to their authority, and some clubs may struggle to adapt to a world without lucrative transfer fees. So what do you think? Is the EUGH verdict the dawn of a new, better era for football? Or could it open a Pandora box of unintended consequences? Let us know in the comments below.